things Halloween. This is hauntformer, and today I'm going to do something unheard of. Well, if you just scroll around on YouTube, I'm sure you'll probably hear of it soon enough. I am going to rank the Scream movies. Yeah, a lot of people are doing it right now with the release of the new 2022 Scream, which most people are kind of calling Scream 5 at this point. Because that movie's out, a lot of people are talking about it and adding it to their roster of Scream movies, so I thought I did a Scream ranking before. I guess I've done ones for Halloween and the Child's Play series and a few other series, but I've never done Scream, which is weird because this is my favorite horror franchise. There aren't a ton of entries in the Scream franchise, unlike other popular horror franchises out there like Friday the 13th or the aforementioned Halloween. But there are 5 at this point, so I feel like it's safe to make a ranking list. When I talk about my ranking, though, there are a few things to keep in mind. First and foremost, these are all my opinions, so don't hate me in the comments if I rank one higher or lower than you'd like me to. Also, keep in mind that I love all of the Scream movies, so just because I rank one lower than another doesn't mean I dislike the film in any way. I enjoy all of these films. Unlike some franchises that have really good and really bad entries, like the Halloween franchise, for example, I enjoy all of the Scream movies. Even the ones that I don't consider as good, I still find a lot of things I enjoy about them. So for each of these, I'm going to talk about what I dislike in the movie and what I like in the movie, and you'll kind of see why some rank higher than others. I've seen the new one twice at this point in theaters, so while I still need to watch that one a few more times, I feel like I'm pretty confident in my opinion on it. So, with that said, let's rank the Scream movies. Starting off with number 5, we have Scream 3. So, Scream 3 is kind of the obvious pick, if you will. If you go to basically any Scream franchise movie ranking, Scream 3 is usually listed as the least favorite of the bunch. Now, I actually really like Scream 3, and several years ago, if you would have asked me, I probably would have ranked it maybe my second favorite of the franchise. But I've got a more mature movie mind now. I know what to look for in terms of character development and pacing and plot points. And this movie, while it's entertaining to me, and it certainly has its moments that I really enjoy, it is by far the weakest of the bunch for several reasons. This is the only one not written by Kevin Williamson. Well, now at the recording of this, I guess Scream 2022 wasn't written by Williamson, but it was produced by him. This is the only one that didn't really have his involvement. Wes Craven still directed this one, but it was written by, I think, Aaron Kruger. And it's not a terrible screenplay. There are some good ideas in it. I love that it takes place on a movie set. Basically, them making Stab 3 is the plot of Scream 3, which I think is a funny idea. I love the intro with Cotton Weary. I love the ending for as kind of contrived the reveal of the killer is, which, by the way, I will probably get into spoilers, so don't watch if you don't want to hear who the killers are in XYZ movie. Anyways, you probably figured that out, but even though the reveal, like the reason why, is a little weak and underbaked, underdeveloped in the movie, I still really like the dramatics of it, being in this Hollywood house where these producers did things in the past. I really enjoyed all of those bits. But there are a lot of things weighing the movie down. First and foremost, some of the plot developments. For example, the killer is trying to find Sydney, trying to get her phone number. And you're like, okay, what's gonna happen? It literally just cuts to the killer calling her. We never figure out where he got the number. It just happens, because I guess they couldn't figure out where he was gonna get it. Sydney is also not present in the movie that much as compared to the other films in the franchise, and you can feel it. They give Dewey and Gale more of the attention here. That's fine, I like their characters enough, but I wanted to see more about Sydney. You get this subplot with her and her mom's ghost, and it ties into the killer, whom, spoiler alert, is Roman, whom is an underbaked killer, really, when you think about it. As much as I like him and the actor that performs Roman, he never met Sydney throughout the entirety of the movie, so the reveal is kind of weak. But I do still find parts of this movie entertaining. Again, there are some over-the-top elements to it, like the voice modulator that mimics voices. It's a little dipping in the sci-fi territory, but you know what? Still a fun ride, still a Scream movie, but it is the weakest of the bunch, and that's why it's at number 5. Let's jump into number 4, which is Scream 4. This was a difficult choice because part of me really couldn't get over where these next 3 went. I was, everybody's pretty certain about what number 1's gonna be. You figured it out. And most people agree that 3 is probably the weakest, but these are the tricky ones. But for me, Scream 4 is going to rank in 4th place. Like I said, I enjoy Scream 4. A lot of moments of it. I really like the new characters, especially Kirby, and I enjoy Jill too. I like that they hark back to the older films by giving the legacy, quote-unquote, characters a lot of moments to shine. And I like a lot of the scenes in this movie. Sometimes when you look at the picture as a whole, it's not as great as the sum of its parts because I like those individual parts so much. I really like a lot of the phone call scenes. I love the opening. I enjoy the Stabathon scene and the ending, but there are some moments of downtime where I think a little more flair could have been added. I think one of the reasons that this one went a little lower on the list for me, and maybe someone else out there agrees perhaps, is that what they were trying to touch on about remakes and requels and whatever you want to call it, that kind of talking point that's in this movie is not as well developed as it is in the 2022 Scream movie. I feel like that plot point is better addressed in this new movie than it was in Scream 4. For as much as I enjoy Scream 4 and the characters in it, I do feel like that, which is probably one of the strongest parts of a Scream movie, is that comedic commentary on moviedom. I feel like that was underbaked in Scream 4 and was at least more prominent in the new movie. Again, Scream 4 is probably one of the most violent of the Scream franchise, that and this new one. They got definitely more intense as they went along. There are some scenes that stick out to me. I love the intro, like I said, with the real comedic kind of jabs at the horror franchises that we love, and I dig it. I'm really glad that we got one final Scream with Wes Craven in 2011, so that was awesome. Now let's move on to number 3, which is... Number 3 goes to Scream 2022, or Scream 5, whatever you want to call it is fine with me. This newest installment in the Scream saga. I was nervous about this one. I'm going to be really honest. With Wes Craven's passing, I kind of thought they should just be done with Scream. The television show, while it had entertaining bits to it, I really thought the first season was pretty clever and some of the reveals were smart. It just wasn't up to the standard. Putting it on television also took away from the movie aspect of Scream that I love so much. So after all of that, I'm like, maybe Scream is just better off concluded with Scream 4. But if there was ever a reason to bring it back, this was it. I really enjoyed this movie for many reasons. I love the meta-ness of it. I love that it talks about the requels and the remakes, and I think even better than Scream 4. It addresses those and kind of pokes fun at what we expect. There are a lot of gags in the movie. For example, there's a refrigerator door gag where you think the killer's gonna pop up, never does. It's kind of a clever little nod to what we expect. I like that they talk about the elevated horror as well, and how even Ghostface is like, that's a little fancy pants, don't you think? Like, I love those movies like Hereditary and The Witch and you know, there's a lot of good elevated horror films out, but every now and again you just need a stab. You just need a Scream movie. And I think it was refreshing to see in this particular film. I like that they kind of wrapped a lot of the legacy characters up. I could see them bringing them into a Scream 6 potentially, but they did a good job bringing them back together. It made it feel worthy. I like a lot of these new characters. We don't get to see a ton of them by the end of the movie, but I like it. I like the blend of humor, and I like the horror is actually pretty intense. There are some brutal killings in this movie. Caught me off guard, but it was a good reason to bring Scream back. I like that this movie was fine with poking fun at itself. You can tell that Matt and Tyler and the crew behind this movie had a passion for it, both for Wes and his legacy and for this franchise. And I'm really glad that I got to be around to see it in theaters. Hopefully I'll get to see it for a third time in theaters, but we'll see. Maybe that's overkill. I don't know. But I'm glad it exists. So good job, Scream 2022. And while it was hard, I do think these next two contenders are better. But, like I said, I like all these movies. So let's move on to number 2, which is Scream 2, the sequel. The original screenplay was just called Scream, the sequel, which I thought was interesting. This was difficult because Scream 2 is probably the one for me that's moved around the most in this list. But when I think about it, Scream 2 defined this franchise almost as much as Scream 1 did in a lot of ways. It introduced a lot of the tropes that we've seen. I like that it's more meta and that it jokes about the fact that sequels are usually inferior, which it is to the first one, but it's still a great movie. I like that it makes fun of itself by having the Stab universe be a part of the Scream universe. That was introduced in this movie, and I really like that. While the killers are not as prominent as Billy and Stu were from Scream, I really think Mickey and Mrs. Loomis are both very psychotic, and their performances are really fun, and it's an entertaining twist. Even if it doesn't entirely hold up as well as one's reveal did, I still enjoy it. There are a lot of great sequences in the movie. In particular, the scene where Sydney and her friend have to climb over Ghostface while in the car, in the vehicle. That opening is so fantastic with the screening of Stab 1. The setting of the campus is weird, I must admit, because so much of it takes place there. And there are a lot of things to do with theater, and that kind of takes away from the movie element of it. But I like that this movie is aware of the success of Scream and is able to play and jab at that. It's a clever script. It's a smart script. Like I said, a lot of these movies could be rearranged because I enjoy 4, 5 technically 2022, and 2 almost the same. But when it comes down to it, I feel like 2 is important to what makes those other ones work. And this all leads, of course, to number 1. Go figure. Scream. The one that started it all. I mean, what's there to say that hasn't been said? I was watching Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is another movie he made in the 90s before Scream. It's very meta. It's basically like Freddy Krueger exists in the real world, and all of the cast from Nightmare on Elm Street plays themselves, and Wes Craven's in it as himself. And I feel like that was an inspiration for Wes to make Scream. Obviously, Kevin Williamson wrote the script based off of a Gainesville murder and the teasing of his friend and all of that. It's just incredible how this all came together. You have a great cast of characters. You have a great murder mystery, which the whodunit thing is a very important aspect of Scream. You have the iconic mask and the great score, the soundtrack, the iconography of even the locations is so clever, like Stu's house, for example, Casey Becker's house, the school itself, them hanging out by the fountain. It's just a great film. It's one of my favorite horror films. I love that opening scene. I think that opening scene is probably one of the scariest scenes in any movie, and probably the best horror opening. in any movie. Like I said, what's there to really say about it? If I had to pick out any complaints, there are a few moments in the middle. Like, the ending is great, the intro is great, and there are highlights in that middle section. For example, when Ghostface is chasing Sidney around the house. Moments like that really stick out to me, but there are a few lulls in the middle. For example, right around when Ghostface kills the principal, there are a few lulls where they're like walking around and you see Ghostface in the reflection in the refrigerators, and I'm like, I don't know if Billy or Stu would be running around in broad daylight in a Ghostface costume. It just seems like excess just to have Ghostface there. Now, some people theorize that it's Roman, but that was not developed, and Kevin Williamson didn't even write Scream 3, so I throw that out. I still like Scream. I love Scream, obviously, but I'm trying to nitpick each of these movies with a complaint, and that's the complaint for Scream. For as amazing as it is, there are those little moments that I'd go, oh, this could be even better. But Scream revolutionized the horror genre. It really revitalized the slasher movie. By the late 90s, you had a lot of the slasher goons running out of steam. Michael Myers was done, Freddy was done, Chucky actually got revitalized because of Scream, as did Michael Myers. It's amazing what this movie did. It started a legacy, and I'm glad for it. I'm so glad for it. It deserves it. It's a really smart slasher movie, and one that has a lot of fun with its concepts, blending that horror and comedy so well. The comedy sticks, and a lot of the moments are genuinely funny, like the scene at the movie store, the scene where they're talking about the rules. It's funny and self-referential, but the horror is really scary. That intro scene chills me every time. Great stuff. Great movie. So, there you have it. My ranking of the Scream franchise. What's yours? Leave your opinions in the comments below. I hear a lot of people saying that this new one is the second best, and I could definitely see where you're coming from. So let me know, like I said, in the comments below, your ranking of Scream. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, as always, for all things Halloween, this is Hauntformer.